I was halfway through reading out the weekly storm watch when it happened. No warning, no chime, no delay. 1 second, I was telling folks along the southern ridge to stay inside and watch for hail, and the next, the station went silent, like the air had thickened, like the speakers inhaled and forgot how to breathe. Then the override kicked in. We have an emergency line, one of those old fail-safes built into the signal. It's dusty, never used, one of those relics they always told us would only be activated in the event of something truly catastrophic, like an incoming asteroid or a nuclear release. It doesn't route through the board. You can't cut it. It seizes the air and makes itself known. The voice that came through was calm, measured, the way you imagine a pilot sounds when the engines are on fire, but he's trained not to raise his voice. This is an international emergency broadcast. Please stand by. I froze. I just sat there with my hands on the desk, my eyes flicking between the monitor, the dead mic light, and the feed that now belonged to someone else. And then the message came. Not a warning, not an order to evacuate, nothing like that. Just information. Quiet. Impossible. The announcer said it like it was fact, like it had been confirmed, triple verified, and passed through every filter science could throw at it. The sun, he said, is not a star in the conventional sense. It is a structure, a mechanism. Observations confirm the presence of a surface aperture, approximately 7,000 kilometers wide. It opened, then closed. An aperture. That was the word. He repeated it twice, each time with that same steady voice, like he was describing the moon phases or reading a traffic report. A global silence followed. No one spoke. I didn't. I couldn't. Phones didn't ring. Emails didn't ping. Even the wind outside seemed to pause, like everything had tilted slightly off axis. Then the feed cut. Just static. No explanation. No follow-up. No time given for the next update. And I just sat there, alone in the booth, the buzz of the fluorescent light, overhead the only thing reminding me that time was still moving forward. I think I whispered, "What?" just to hear a sound. 10 minutes later, the phones lit up. Caller after caller. Some confused, some angry, some already convinced it was a hoax. One woman cried the entire time and never said a word. Another man, quiet, older, with a southern accent, said, "I knew it. I knew it wasn't just heat. They've all been saying it differently, but the feeling is the same. Like something in them already knew. Like this wasn't discovery. This was confirmation." I checked the major stations. Same message, word for word. Satellite feeds went dark an hour later. News anchors fumbled. A few walked off set. I watched one live stream where a meteorologist ripped her mic off mid-broadcast and said, "It blinked. I saw it. I saw it blink. And now, I can't stop looking at the light coming through the window. It's not different, not really. It still casts the same shadows. Still warms the glass. But it feels off. Intentional. Like it's aware of where it lands. I haven't left the booth. Not yet. I'm not sure what I'm waiting for. Maybe for someone to tell me it was all a mistake. Maybe for the second message to say, never mind. The sun is just the sun again. But that message hasn't come. And every time I close my eyes, I see it. The aperture. The opening. Like a slit across the face of the sky. And behind it, something watching. I'm staying on air. Until I know more. Until someone explains what we saw. Or until it blinks again. It's been 24 hours since the broadcast. No updates. No corrections. Just silence from every major network that carried the message. I've scrolled through feeds, refreshed government sites, dug through amateur telescope forums. All of it, the usual channels, the trusted science pages, the weather cams I've bookmarked over the years, either scrubbed or eerily still. One of them, out of Taiwan, just loops the same 10-second cloud reel over and over, like the sky hasn't changed in hours. And maybe it hasn't, but the sun still rises. That much is true. Still burns, still hangs in the sky like it always has. Only now people are watching it like it might flinch. I had a caller this morning. Said she's been a solar technician for over a decade. Works out near Phoenix on one of the big energy farms. She told me the light is different. Not in intensity, no spike or drop. Nothing measurable, but in feel. Those are her words, not mine. She said that when it hits your skin, it lingers. Like heat with intention. She said, it doesn't feel like warmth. It feels like focus. Another listener, A middle school teacher in Ohio said her students stopped drawing suns the same way. No more yellow circles. No rays. They've started drawing it with lines through the center. Vertical, like a pupil. None of them were told about the announcement. Not officially, but they know. Somehow they know. Still, people were trying to explain it away. Some major news outlets ran a retraction, half-hearted, buried beneath celebrity stories and vague optical illusion headlines. One article blamed a calibration error in a new satellite lens array. Another claimed a fragment of a sensor lens had melted and refracted light in a way that created an artificial blink. Sure, I believe that maybe, if not for the footage. It leaked 2 hours ago. Someone, I don't know who, posted it anonymously. 15 seconds. Raw, unedited, shaky as hell. A view from space, possibly from an older probe. You see the sun, clear and steady. Then just for a moment, the surface darkens. Not a flare, not a sunspot. It contracts, then opens, just slightly, like something testing a lid. Then it closes, not fast, not dramatic, like something slowly, lazily waking up. And if you freeze frame it at the right second, frame 627, I think you can see it. A ring, inside the aperture, an iris, or something close enough that it makes your breath catch. It's not symmetrical, it's not human, but it knows what it's doing. The file's being pulled from every major platform. Flagged, removed, debunked. But I've saved it. Burn it on a disk. Archived it 6 ways from Sunday. And I'm telling you now, it's real. They can't unsee it, and they can't make us forget. But they're trying. They're telling us to stay indoors. Not for health, not for safety, for monitoring purposes. Like the sun is contagious now. Like looking at it too long might carry something back with you. Maybe they're right. I don't know what happens next. I don't think anyone does. But I do know this. There's a reason they aren't saying more. It's not because they don't believe it. It's because they do. So I'm still here. Still watching the light. Still taking your calls. If you've seen something, anything, let me know. If it feels different, if it looks different, if the sun knows you're looking at it now. Tell me. Because I think it's watching for more than just us. I think it's waiting. It happened again this morning. Not as dramatic this time. No breaking announcement, no scrambled press release, but people noticed. They felt it. I was live on air when the lines went quiet. Not dropped, just still, for exactly 13 seconds. No calls, no interference, no static. Like the whole signal, maybe the whole sky held its breath. And then the sun blinked. That's the only way I can describe it. A flicker, but not like a cloud passing overhead or a storm rolling in. The light didn't dim gradually. It cut fast and clean, like someone flipped a switch. Not all the way off, just enough for the mind to notice something fundamentally wrong. I didn't see it directly because I wasn't looking at the sky, but I felt it. It was like that moment when your stomach drops because you missed a step going downstairs. There was a wrongness in the light. My pen rolled across the desk, and I swear it slowed down midway through, as if gravity had hesitated. And then everything went back to normal. Except it didn't. The light's wrong now. Ask anyone. It's not brighter. It's not darker. It's just heavier. It lands on things differently. It doesn't scatter the way it used to. Listeners have started describing it as dense. Like a pressure system. Like it's being aimed. One caller from Mississippi said that his trees are starting to bend toward the light, not just the tops like in heliotropism. The whole trunks are bending. He watched one curve half a degree yesterday. He marked it with chalk. Today the line is gone. Again, he said, it's not reaching for the sun. It's afraid of being noticed. Another call came in from the desert, New Mexico, I think. A woman was out on her porch in the early morning watching the ground. She said that when the blinking started, her shadow didn't disappear. It just stopped following her. It stayed frozen mid-motion, as if it didn't know what the sun was anymore. She asked me, what casts a shadow when the light doesn't even know it's shining? I didn't have an answer. But here's something even stranger. People are timing them now. The blinks. There have been 2 more, shorter ones across different parts of the globe. Not at night. Not in eclipse zones. They're just random patches of daylight where, for a few seconds, the sun malfunctions. And it's always 13 seconds. Same duration. Every time. which suggests pattern, intention, a kind of rhythm. Some think it's a message, a signal trying to slow itself down for us, or maybe a way of watching us without burning us up completely, like it's learning how to see gently. I had a neuroscientist call in, said light exposure affects the human brain in ways we don't fully understand, especially when the light is inconsistent. Sudden shifts like this can trigger dissociation, memory fog, mood shifts. But she also said something else. Offhand, casual, like she wasn't sure if it was a joke. If the sun is blinking, it means it has eyelids. She paused. I didn't say anything. Then she added, and if it has eyelids, it probably dreams. The line went dead after that. So here we are, a planet revolving around a thing we once thought was inert. Nuclear, understandable, and now it's blinking, watching, maybe even thinking, and no one knows what it sees when it closes its eye. So tell me, if you noticed it, if your light stuttered, if your shadow held on too long, call me. Because I think next time, it's not going to blink for 13 seconds. It's going to blink longer. It's the shadows now. That's where most people are noticing it. Not the sky, not the light, not even the blink anymore. What the light leaves behind is starting to shift quietly and incrementally, as if reality were reconfiguring in slow motion, hoping we wouldn't notice until it was finished. But we're noticing. At first, I didn't believe it. There were a few scatter calls early on reporting odd shadow behavior, figures leaning in the wrong direction, trees casting too many limbs, and porch railings splitting into strange angles by midday. But now it's everywhere. I watched mine move this morning. It was around 7 a.m., just after sunrise. I was walking across the gravel lot outside the station, cup of coffee in hand, and I saw it out of the corner of my eye, my shadow stepping a half beat ahead of me. Not trailing like it should, leading. I stopped. It kept going, just for a second, then snapped back like a rubber band. It shouldn't have shaken me, but it did. Something about the way it returned, how it seemed aware it had gone too far, like it had been caught doing something it wasn't supposed to. I came back inside and locked the door behind me. Didn't even realize I'd done it until 10 minutes later. Since then, I've taken 17 calls, all reporting similar things. One man in South Dakota said the shadows in his barn aren't still anymore. He's seen them twitch, move when nothing else does. He put flour on the floor. In the morning, he found patterns. Not footprints, not smears. Finger-length smudges, like something reaching out and then pulling back just before it touched the surface. Another caller, a mother from Utah, said her daughter drew a picture of their family on the driveway with chalk. She finished the bodies, the clothes, the faces, then drew the shadows behind each one. Except she drew them as black figures with white eyes. She said, "They're the ones that come out when the light forgets who we are." That was her exact wording. People have started covering mirrors, not because of what's in them, because of what's missing. I've had 3 reports now of reflections without shadows. Just bright figures, outlines glowing softly in rooms where the sun shouldn't reach. One man even claimed his shadow bowed to him. Bowed, like it was acknowledging something. I don't know what it means, but I've started paying attention to the way things fall, how objects cast darkness. And once you really start watching, you realize how unnatural shadows already were perfectly tied to their sources, unquestioning obedient. Now they seem curious, like they've been waiting. For what? I don't know. For us to notice? For the light to change? Or maybe they were never passive at all. Maybe they were always tethered, leashed by some rule we didn't understand. A rule that's now breaking, or being rewritten. One listener said it best. Sent me an email just an hour ago. No name, no location. Just 2 sentences. The sun is learning how to see, and his shadows are learning how to move. I don't know if that's poetry or prophecy, but I believe it. If you notice that your walls are darker than usual, your reflection is delayed, or the shape behind you doesn't move with you, don't look directly at it. Not yet, because whatever's happening with the sun, the shadows are watching back. The calls today have taken a strange turn. Not because they're different, because they're the same. Over and over, people are saying the same thing in different ways, and it's getting harder to dismiss. It started with a woman from Minneapolis. She called in and asked if anyone else had noticed how quiet it had become during the last blink. Not outside, but inside, in the mind. She said, for a moment, everything I ever worried about just stopped, like someone muted my thoughts. Then she added, I haven't been able to see since I was a child. That caught me off guard. I asked her if she'd heard about the blink from someone else. She said no. She just knew. She felt it. Not light or shadow or heat, just a pressure and then a release. She said, whatever it is, it didn't touch me. It passed over me, and then the pattern started to emerge. For more callers that hour, all visually impaired, some fully blind, some with partial loss. Each of them said the same thing. The feeling that something is moving through the world, and the sense that they are outside of its focus. One man said, it's not looking at me. It's not ignoring me either. It just doesn't see me. Like I'm on the wrong frequency. He didn't sound afraid. None of them did. In fact, they all described the same strange clarity. Calm, even joy. One said it was like being back in the womb, warm, weightless, known but untouched. Another said she hasn't had a migraine since the first blink after 20 years of daily pain. There's something in that, something important, because while the rest of us are growing paranoid, seeing shadows flicker, watching light turn foreign, feeling our own reflections hesitate, the blind are steady. Still, quiet. It's like the sun only touches what can look back. A theologian called in, didn't give his name, just said he'd studied ancient texts all his life. He told me, in most scriptures, the divine doesn't just appear, it requires witness. God does not show up for the sake of existence. He appears when seen. And maybe that's what this is. Not the sun changing, but the sun becoming seen. Or more than that, becoming aware of being seen. And if that's true, then those who cannot look upon it, who cannot offer their gaze in return are spared. Not protected, just unaccounted for. Like ghosts in reverse. Or maybe they're not outside the phenomenon at all. Maybe they're closer to its origin. One woman, completely blind since birth, told me she started dreaming in colors she doesn't have names for. She said they pulse, that they move with a kind of purpose. She wakes up humming notes she's never heard. Her partner said she speaks in her sleep now, words in no language they recognize. I asked her what the dreams feel like. She paused, and then she said, it's not a dream. It's a memory, and it's not mine. I don't know what that means. But I think they're not seeing the eye because they've already heard it, or touched it, or walked some edge of it we haven't reached yet. So if you can't see the sun, maybe you're not missing anything. Maybe you're ahead. And for the rest of us, if what's watching us only counts the eyes that meet its gaze, then every time we look up, we may be answering a roll call we didn't mean to join. They're starting to gather now. It's not organized. Not yet, but it's everywhere. Little clusters of people across the world, all different backgrounds, faiths, languages, coming together for the same reason, to look at the sun. They're not wearing protective gear. They're not using filters or lenses. They're just staring, directly, unblinking, for as long as their eyes will let them. Some bleed, some weep, some don't seem to react at all. I saw a video today, sent in by a listener from South Carolina. It showed a group of 30, maybe 40 people standing barefoot in an open field. No ceremony, no speech, just silence, all of them facing the sun. And then, after about 10 minutes, they began to hum. Not a melody, not random. One long, low tone, perfectly synchronized. The kind of sound you feel in your chest more than your ears. It went on for nearly 3 minutes before the footage cut out. When it came back, the group was gone. No one walked away. No one broke the circle. They were just missing. Another report came in from Istanbul. This one was from a rooftop camera. A young person with long hair and bare feet was standing on a ledge with their arms raised. A crowd formed below. First dozens, then hundreds. No chanting, no speaking, just eyes locked on the sky. According to witnesses, the person on the rooftop began to glow. Not metaphorically. They said the light bent around them. It was like a halo was being born. The police broke it up an hour later. Found the ledge empty. The rooftop door was still locked from the inside. More footage, more images. They're calling themselves the Gazers now. The name keeps popping up on message boards and flyers. A small group in Berlin released a statement. I read it on air earlier, but I'll read the final line again. We stare into the eye not for answers, but because we have been stared into. We respond to what already knows us. That phrase, already knows us, it keeps showing up in graffiti, on notebooks, scratched into walls. Someone called from Montana and said a new mural appeared overnight, 15 feet high on the side of a grain silo. No one saw who painted it. It's an image of the sun, detailed and realistic, but with an iris in the center. No pupil, just a maze, a spiral that doesn't end. And underneath, written in red, it blinks because it is merciful. I don't know what's driving this. Faith? Madness? A biological compulsion? Something built into us, waiting for this moment to activate? Or maybe it's something simpler. Maybe when you find out the thing you've orbited your whole life has been watching you back. Maybe you just wanted to know you're watching, too. Even if it burns you. Even if it erases something inside you. One caller this afternoon said her sister stared at the sun for 10 full minutes. Didn't flinch. Didn't blink. When she finally looked away, she smiled. And then she said something that made the whole room go silent. It sees me now. I don't have to try anymore. She hasn't spoken since. So if you see them, the ones in the fields, the rooftops, the parks, barefoot and reverent, don't interrupt. They're not trying to worship. They're communing. And I think whatever's inside that light is starting to respond. I've stopped sleeping. It's not insomnia exactly. I try to rest. I close my eyes. But there's something under the lids now. A flicker. A pulse. Like even behind the dark, there's still light bleeding through. And I'm not alone. Many of you have called in to say the same thing. Not nightmares. Those would be a mercy. It's this in-between state. Not dreaming, not waking. You're just existing in a place where the sun follows you inward. Some people have started calling it solar drift. It's that moment when your thoughts no longer feel like yours. And honestly, I'm starting to wonder if mine are still mine. Earlier today, I caught myself talking into the mic with no memory of turning it on. No show notes in front of me. No script, just my voice filling the room. I played it back afterward. There were 5 minutes of speech I have no memory of. Not nonsense either. Perfectly paced, measured, thoughtful. I said things like, we are being inscribed. The eye seeks its own reflection. Memory is light that's been slowed down long enough to forget it was ever moving. I don't know where those words came from, but I remember saying them now, even though I didn't remember saying them at the time. Like they were planted and now they've bloomed. People are starting to report hallucinations in daylight. Not out of the corner of the eye. Centered. Clear. Deliberate. A woman in the Yukon said she saw her husband walk through the front door an hour after he'd left for work. He sat down at the table, spoke to her for 5 minutes, then blinked and vanished. When the real man came home, he didn't remember a thing, but she remembered every word. She said it wasn't like a ghost. It was like a memory borrowed from a version of the day that didn't happen. Another caller, who sounded like a child of about 11 years old, said that the sunlight in their room had started whispering. Not words, just emotion. At first, it made them feel warm and safe. Then sad. Then they were terrified. When I asked what scared them, they said, it remembers things I haven't done yet. It's not just the eyes anymore. It's in the brain. There's a theory going around that the light itself carries more than heat. That the blinking is a modulation, a form of communication. And with each pulse, it writes something new into the folds of the mind. One neurologist I spoke with said that it's like a signal embedding itself into consciousness, not as sound or language, but as an experience. Emotional instructions, spiritual blueprints. Some people experience peace, others get dread, but the result is always the same, a changed person. There's a deep, rising sense that the longer you're exposed, the more understood you become. It's as if the eye is parsing you in real time, not judging, not harming, just learning. And when it's done learning, I don't know what happens next. I keep thinking about a caller from 2 nights ago. He said his thoughts aren't private anymore. He'll be standing alone in the kitchen and suddenly realize he's having someone else's memory. A birthday party, a funeral, someone he's never met, but the memory feels real. He said, I think it's syncing us. So, if you hear voices that don't sound like yours or think things that feel like leftovers from someone else's mind, don't panic. It might just be the sunlight finishing your sentence. And if you feel something watching you from inside your own thoughts, that's because it is. It's official now. The Earth has changed course. It wasn't announced through the usual channels. There was no presidential address. There was no primetime broadcast. Instead, it was just a quiet, reluctant press release from a joint team of observatories buried 4 paragraphs deep in an article that no one wanted to publish. The wording was careful, technical. It said the Earth's orbital path has shown unexpected deviation from projected models, with adjustments not caused by any known gravitational interference. In other words, we're moving wrong and they don't know why. But we do, don't we? It's the eye, the sun, or whatever's inside it. There's something about the blink, the modulation, and the attention that has shifted something fundamental. Our spin, our speed, and our angle to the light have changed. The math is subtle, but the effects are beginning to emerge. One astronomer described it this way: we're still orbiting the sun, but now it feels like the sun is pulling us instead of holding us. There's a difference, and the world is feeling it. Tides have started acting strange, not higher, not lower, just wrong. The timing's off. I had a caller from a coastal village in Chile say the waves are now arriving out of sync with the moon. He tracks them every day, has for years. He said, the water is reaching for something else now. Even the animals know. Bird migrations are stalling mid-flight. I received a message from a park ranger who said the sky has grown quiet. The birds aren't fleeing, they're just hovering. Not literally, but figuratively. It's as if they're waiting for something to decide where they're supposed to go. And the plants, they're not turning toward the light anymore. I've seen the pictures. Sunflowers leaning sideways. Trees casting their leaves prematurely, as if the season has changed even though the calendar hasn't. A woman in Kyoto sent in a photo of her garden, every stem twisted slightly away from the sun, like they're flinching. And that's what it feels like, isn't it? Like the planet's flinching, not running, not escaping, just recoiling slightly. The way you do when someone stares a little too long. And it's not just physical. I've been watching the station's clock, the one synced to a satellite feed. It's been off lately, only by milliseconds, but still off. At first I thought it was a glitch, but now I'm not so sure. There's a theory floating around in the deeper forums. You won't find it on the big channels yet, but it's growing. The idea is this: the eye isn't just watching, it's realigning. Not violently, not destructively, just setting the system straight. It's as if we've been slightly off kilter this whole time, and now, under observation, our orbit is being adjusted. It's as if our entire planetary existence is being rotated into some forgotten symmetry. And if that's true, then the question becomes, what are we being aligned to? Not just the eye, maybe something bigger, something it's part of, a grid, a lattice, a network of watchers, each one blinking in a rhythm we can't yet perceive. Someone wrote to me, just a short note, and signed. It said, the light isn't constant, it's scanning. And that's how it feels, doesn't it? Like every blink is a new line of code, a recalibration, a pulse shifting not just where we are, but what we are. So if the wind feels slower today, if the sun doesn't rise at quite the angle you remember, or if the shadows of buildings fall in places they never used to, you're not imagining it. The orbit's changed, and I think the eye is turning us so it can see better. Today, the sun didn't rise. Not here, at least. Not over this part of the world. It's 9:37 a.m., yet the sky remains the deep, bruised blue of pre-dawn. Cold, flat. There's no warmth on the glass. The birds didn't sing. The trees didn't stir. There was no golden glow rising over the ridge, just stillness and a dimness that felt like forgetting. I thought maybe it was cloud cover, thick and low. But there was nothing up there. The sky is empty. Not starless, but sightless. And I'm not the only one seeing this. Calls are coming in from all over the northern part of the country. It's the same thing. No sunrise. The watches are blinking 7:03 a.m., 7:06 a.m., and 7:12 a.m., but there is still no light. It's just a dull, hanging darkness, as if the morning were trapped behind an invisible curtain. And it's not just absence. That's the part that chills me. It's direction. The light didn't die. It just shifted. South, east, Elsewhere, reports out of Jakarta say it's blindingly bright there. Unnaturally bright. Midday white heat by 6 a.m., no clouds, no shade. One woman said it looked like the sun is leaning in. Another caller, this one from Buenos Aires, told me the shadows are longer than they've ever been, stretched clear across rooftops like searchlights in reverse. He said his dog won't go outside, keeps whimpering at the door. Every time the light hits the living room floor, it backs away. It's like the eye has turned its attention to a different part of the world. Not rotating, not drifting, choosing. And that's the part one can't shake. Because if the sun is an eye, and it can turn, then it has a target. And if it can choose where to look, it can also choose where not to. I keep thinking about yesterday when the light still touched everything, even just briefly. It was shared, distant, yes, but impartial. Now it's selective, focused, intentional. What about the places it's turned away from? We're cold. Not just temperature, but spirit too. Everything slows down here. My voice echoes differently in this room. The equipment is acting strangely. Frequencies are drifting, and there's feedback in places where there shouldn't be any. An hour ago, I touched the window, and it felt like metal left out in the winter. A listener in Nova Scotia said her shadow didn't show up at all today, not even in lamplight. Said she looked behind her and saw nothing. Like I'm not being tracked anymore, she said. Like I've been skipped. What happens when the eye looks away? Are we safe, or are we forgotten? I don't know which one frightens me more, because it means whatever's watching can stop watching. And maybe this darkness isn't mercy. Maybe it's neglect. One more thing. I probably shouldn't say this on air, but last night, just before the sky went dark, I swear I saw something move across the sun. Not a flare, not a bird or a plane. A shape, tall, thin, angular. It passed in front of the disc just before the blink, then vanished. And now it's cold. So if the eye isn't on you anymore, if your world has gone dim while others burn too bright, stay inside. Because when it turns back, you might not be where it left you. And it might notice that. It just happened again. The second blink. This time, however, it didn't last 13 seconds. It lasted 94. 94 seconds of darkness. Not night. Absolutely nothing. A total eclipse without a moon. There was no arc or halo. The sun simply went from full light to total blackness, as if a door had slammed shut from the inside. I saw it from a station window. I didn't mean to. I wasn't even looking for it. But I felt the air change. Not cool. Not heavy. Just still. I turned my head, and the sun was gone. Not hidden. Not obscured. Gone. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd gone blind. That's how sudden it was. The light left not just the world, but my own body. Like it had always been inside me and was now taken back. And during those 94 seconds, something came through. It wasn't just dark. It was inhabited. The sky wasn't empty. It was full. I can't explain that in a way that makes sense. Not visually. You couldn't see stars. You couldn't see space. But you could feel the presence of something above. A shape so big it didn't cast a shadow. It cast a boundary. Calls started pouring in. One from a man in Nevada. Said he looked up during the blink and saw a structure. Not a ship. Not metal. Something built. Geometric. Too large to measure. Like scaffolding for a planet-sized cathedral. He said it pulsed once, like it breathed, then faded when the light returned. Another caller, a child, maybe 8 or 9 years old, said there were windows in the sky. Her words. She said faces looked out, but not human faces. Eyes only, and not our kind of eyes. Like circles inside circles, she said, but they don't blink like we do. They blink slow, like they're thinking between movements. Someone else emailed a photo of their street during the blink. Street lamps still glowing. Houses still intact. But every person caught in the image frozen. Not moving. Not reacting. Eyes wide. Some with mouths open mid-sentence. Frozen not by fear. By interruption. As if something paused the script and forgot to resume it right away. And then the sun came back. Just like that. No warmth. No fanfare. Just that heavy, knowing light pouring in again. And now things are different. The birds haven't resumed. The animals haven't stirred. I haven't heard a single plane overhead. And the shadows are twitching. Not swaying. Not responding to wind or motion. They're flickering. like they've forgotten what they're supposed to attach to. And here's the part that really gets me. Everyone who witnessed the blink directly and intentionally has stopped calling. I don't mean they've gone missing. I mean their lines are dead. Their phones are disconnected. Their accounts have been wiped clean. Not a trace. The people who were live on the air with me yesterday, whose names I've come to recognize, are just gone. I don't know if they vanished physically, or if something rewrote them when the eye opened, because that's what it felt like. Not a blink, an inspection, like the eye closed to better focus, and in that moment, it measured us. Some it ignored, some it kept, and some, I think it copied. There's a rising theory in the forums now. Well, I didn't want to say out loud until now. They're calling it second sun theory, the idea that what we orbit isn't a single entity. It's a gate, a lens, and behind it are others, eyes, structures, beings, watching through the same aperture, taking turns. So if you felt different after the blink, if you remember something that didn't happen, or can't recall where you were for those 94 seconds, pay attention. You might still be you, but you might not be alone. There's a new pattern in the light, not just the blinking, something deeper, more deliberate, a rhythm, a pulse, the kind you don't notice unless you're already looking for it. And once you do, you can't stop seeing it. It started with a Morse code enthusiast who listens in from Oregon. Said he was watching the sun through filtered film, just recording time-lapse sequences like he always does. When he sped up the footage, he noticed the flashes weren't random. Not totally. There was repetition, short bursts, long pauses, quick double pulses. He translated them, not expecting much. The message he got? One word, over and over. Listen. He thought it was a coincidence. Maybe sensor noise, maybe camera interference. Until other observers started reporting the same timing. Independent sources, different latitudes, all confirming identical light intervals across multiple days. Then came the musicians. I got a call from a composer in Vienna. She told me the sun's blink pattern harmonizes, actually harmonizes with certain notes on the chromatic scale. Not by accident. She mapped it to a major key and found that the pattern matched the intervals of a melody. A melody, she said, made her cry when she played it. It felt like something I used to know, she said. Like a lullaby from before we had language. I asked her if she wrote it down. She laughed softly. No, I didn't have to. It's still in me. And then came the mathematicians. One from a university in South Africa sent me a voice message. He said the flicker frequency of the sunlight corresponds to fractal sequences, not just visually, but audibly, when translated into sound. He layered 3 hours of sunlight pulses into audio, sped them up, and isolated certain waveforms. What he found was a string of numbers. Not random. Prime. A sequence too precise to be noise. Too elegant. He didn't tell me what the numbers meant. He said he's still working on it. But his final words were, I don't think it's trying to teach us. I think it's reminding us. It's all coming together now. The light isn't just warming us. It isn't just seeing us. It's communicating. Through time, through rhythm, through every tool we've ever used to understand meaning, music, math, memory. And it's doing it slowly, carefully, like it knows we can't handle the whole message at once. The question isn't whether the sun is speaking. It's whether we're finally listening. And some of you are. A man in rural China emailed me an audio clip of wind chimes. Ones he built himself, tuned specifically to resonate with the light. He said when the blink comes, the chimes sound off-key. Not discordant, just translated, like the melody shifts slightly, like it's following a different version of reality. He said, it's trying to sing through my house. And I believe him, because I've heard it too. Not in instruments, not in numbers, in the silence between words, in the static between callers, in the quiet moments after I sign off for the night and the station hums with residual warmth. There's something in there now, a tone, a code, something shaping the silence. So maybe it isn't about answers. Maybe it's a call and response, a conversation older than memory, resuming now because we finally stopped shouting long enough to hear it. If you notice patterns in the light, flashes, pauses, pulses, try to write them down, play them back, see how your body reacts. And if you find yourself humming something unfamiliar, something beautiful and haunting, that might not be your song. It might be the light using you to speak. There's a new document going around. It wasn't released by a government or a university or any institution that would make it seem official. It came through a community board buried 3 layers deep under a forgotten astronomy forum. No name attached, no file history, just a title. The eye woke once before. At first, I thought it was fiction, a thought experiment, but it's not written like that. It's too plain, too steady. The phrasing is old and formal, but not poetic. It's just clean. It's like something that was carefully translated from an older language and left untouched out of respect. It reads like a field report, a record. It describes, in detail, the behavior of a celestial body that sits above the middle sky, hiding its face behind heat and gravity. It tells of a time when this body turned its gaze toward the earth and blinked upon the world with memory. Not light, memory. That's the word that keeps coming back, over and over. If that's still the right word, the sun isn't becoming conscious. It's remembering what it was, what it saw, what it did. More disturbingly, it's remembering what it's connected to. The document says the blink is not just a signal. It's a reflex, a side effect of awareness rebooting, like a yawn after centuries of sleep. But sleep implies rest. This doesn't. This feels more like containment, like something old has been held in place by cycles and physics and time, and now the locks are failing. One by one, I spoke to a linguist off air. She'd been studying ancient symbols found in isolated stone carvings, deep caves, temples abandoned before recorded history. She said they match recent solar flare patterns. That's not a guess. It's a match down to the intervals. She said the eye isn't opening. It's waking up to the fact that it already is open. Which means everything we've built, our calendars, our myths, our warmth, our existence, has been living beneath something sentient, something that forgot itself. Until now. And that forgetting was a gift. Because now that it remembers, the world is starting to feel revised. I had a caller from Nepal. Said she woke up in the middle of the night with the smell of sunlight in her lungs. That's how she put it. Not ozone, not warmth, the smell of sunlight. She said it felt like her body was being reordered, like cells lining up, like a library being reshelved. She said, I think it knows my structure now. Another message, this one from an old fisherman in Greece. He sent a photograph, a horizon that shouldn't exist. The sea rolled upward like the curvature of the planet had changed. He wrote only 6 words beneath it. The sky is remembering its shape. If this is true, if the eye is recovering its identity, then we are not witnessing the birth of God. We are witnessing the return of one, and not a God of mercy or wrath, a God of record, a watcher, a being that has stared at this planet since before the oceans learned to ripple, and which is now piecing together what it lost, piece by piece, pulse by pulse, and what happens when it remembers everything, when the full catalog of humanity floods back into its light. What does it do with what it sees? Does it judge, recreate, rewind, or what does it simply correct? So, if you experience moments that seem out of order, memories that don't seem to match, or deja vu in places you've never been, it might not be your mind playing tricks on you. It might be the sun, rebuilding the memory of the world. And we're just catching up. We lost the trees today. Not all of them, and not all at once, but something green has started to turn. It's not autumn. It's not a drought. It's a reversal. It's something elemental. Photosynthesis is breaking down. Reports started this morning. First, subtle. Houseplants wilting despite water. Leaves curling inward even in full light. Then wider. Forests along the Pacific Northwest going pale. Crops in the Midwest collapsing into themselves. Farmers saying the sun is wrong. Not just too much, not just too bright, but unrecognizable to the roots. I spoke to a botanist in Norway. She's been monitoring chlorophyll production across different plant species. She said the absorption patterns have shifted, like the plants are rejecting the light. It's not food anymore, she told me. It's something else, like a code they were never meant to process. She described greenhouses where flowers have begun to turn their petals inward, closing tightly as if to hide. Insects swarming in confused spirals. Trees withering even as sunlight blares down at full intensity. And it's not just the plants. Animals are slowing down. I had a caller from Ontario describe the deer in his woods lying down in the open, not feeding, not fleeing, just resting, like something inside them told them to pause, to conserve, as if the pulse of life itself has been temporarily muted. A vet from Arizona said her horses refused to leave the stables this morning. They didn't seem scared, just disinterested in the day, like they no longer recognized it. And the birds, the skies are quiet, too quiet. No calls, no migration, no chatter, just the occasional wing beat, deliberate and slow, like they're moving through water instead of air. And I swear the sun feels heavier. That's not science. That's just intuition. But you can feel it, can't you? The weight in the sky, the way the light seems to land and stay, like it's soaking into the ground but not giving anything back. One woman said that when she put her hand in a sunbeam, her fingers ached. Not burned, ached. It was as if something deep inside her bones was being drawn upward. Another wrote in and said she left a jug of water out on the porch for an hour. When she brought it in, it tasted like iron, like it had absorbed something metallic, something electrical. I ran a small experiment here at the station. I placed 2 identical houseplants on the windowsill, same species, same soil, same amount of water. One I turned toward the sun, the other I shielded with a simple cloth. The next morning, the one facing the sun had gone limp. The one in the shade, still reaching. Whatever the eye is doing now, it's not sustaining us. It's testing, or searching, maybe even feeding. And the deeper terror is this. We've built everything on the assumption that the sun is passive, predictable, a constant. But now the engine of life is looking back. And we're starting to learn what that means when it stops being generous. So if your garden dies overnight, if your windows seem to hum, if the warmth on your skin lingers a second too long, don't dismiss it. The light doesn't want to grow you anymore. It wants to know you. Like the others, it started with a blink and a dimming, but slower. At first, I thought it was my eyes. I rubbed them, adjusted the blinds, even tapped the station lights to make sure they were still working. Everything seemed fine, but then I stepped outside, and the sky was folding. It wasn't like night falling or a storm moving in. This was deliberate. The light didn't just fade, it withdrew. It pulled back like a tide. The shadows didn't lengthen. They disappeared. There was no longer a source, no direction, and then the eye closed. Completely. Not a blink this time, not a flicker, a full, conscious closure. I watched as the great golden disc collapsed inward from the edges, like the iris was contracting to nothing. The last thing visible before darkness wasn't the light. It was the shape within it, the slit, the pupil, the watcher, and then there was nothing. I've seen solar eclipses before. This was not that. There was no corona, no ring of fire, no glow, just a total, consuming shut-eye. A cosmic lid drawn across the day, and with it, silence like I've never known. The kind of silence that presses down into your bones. Not absence of sound, but the weight of being unobserved. It didn't get cold. It didn't get hot. It just stopped. I checked the signal, still broadcasting. Somehow, even without solar power, without grid, everything still ran. But the signal wasn't just mine anymore. Something was layered beneath it. A frequency I couldn't hear but could feel. Like my voice was just scaffolding for another message, one not meant for ears. And then I noticed my vision. Not dimmed. Empty. I walked through the station with my hands outstretched and my feet carefully placed, and every surface felt normal. But I couldn't see them. I couldn't see my fingers, my desk, or the microphone I'd sat behind for years. The world was still here, but my eyes were gone. Not physically. They were open. I could feel the wind on my face, the weight of my lashes. But sight itself had been removed. Not stolen, recalled. I think the eye took it back. I think this is the final step. The full closing. Not to punish, not to erase, but to reset. Like it's shutting down the screen before rebooting the system. A few callers got through before the lines went quiet. One whispered, "I saw myself from above," and then I was replaced. Another sobbed, saying, "The light left me behind." The last just breathed for a long time before saying, "We were never the story. We were the reflection. I can still speak, still think, still feel. But the world around me is suspended, waiting, The kind of waiting you do when the lights are out and something big is standing just outside your understanding, breathing. So, if you can still hear this, if the signal is reaching you somehow, remember this. We were never alone under the sun. We were never unobserved. Now that the eye has closed, we're not in the dark. We're in the pause. It's the breath before a new gaze opens. This may be my last transmission, not because I've stopped broadcasting, but because there might not be anyone left to see it.